Game 2, Alekhine vs. Levenfish, St. Petersburg Chess Society, Winter Tournament of 1912. D4, Queen's Pawn Game. Black plays c5. Now, Alekhine writes that this is a grave positional error because white obtains a great positional advantage by advancing the central pawns. So, d5, knight c3, e4, and f4. So, okay, I think it's pretty close to the truth even today. Of course, everybody knows it's much more popular to start with knight f6 and after c4 play c5. But Alekhine didn't mention this. He did, however, mention if white plays knight f3, then c5 is still not quite working. Okay, in the game, c5, d5, knight to f6, knight to c3, d6, e4, g6. If black plays e6, then bishop c4, and Alekhine writes that this is not satisfactory for black because of the weakness on d6. g6, f4, threatening e5, knight b to d7, knight f3. Black has options here. If bishop g7, then e5, d takes e5, f takes e5, knight g4, e6, knight d to e5, and bishop b5 is good for white. White is going to castle, and because after king f8 and castle, the e6 pawn cannot be touched. This is why black plays a6. So this was in the game, a6. White advances e5 immediately. Take e5, f takes e5, knight g4, and white plays a strong move, e6, natural. This move, according to Alekhine, demolishes black's variation. Knight d to e5, bishop to f4, knight takes f3. If bishop g7, then queen e2, knight takes f3, g takes f3, knight to f6, e takes f7, and following up with castling is an overwhelming advantage for white. Later in his book, Alekhine briefly mentioned the move bishop takes, okay, this is right, bishop takes c3. He writes that this is a more testing line for black because of b takes c3 and queen takes d5, hitting the rook on h1. But he analyzes that f takes g4, allowing queen takes h1, is good for white because of castle. If queen c6, then e takes f7, followed by bishop g2, so taking bishop g2. And this gives white an overwhelming attack. In fact, instead of queen e2, this is in the sideline bishop g7, instead of queen e2, white can obtain an advantage with a risk-free variation. This is with h3. h3 should also give white a huge advantage. So take, queen takes f3, knight to f6, e takes f7. Okay, king takes f7 and bishop c4. clear advantage with no risk. In the game, it was not bishop to g7, it was knight takes f3, hoping that white will take with the queen, which is an inaccuracy. If queen takes f3, then black can suddenly play f takes e6, exclamation mark. Because if queen takes g4, then e5, and we can just verify with the engine here. Yes, black has completely playable position, but okay, it's maybe still, it's interesting position, so bishop on f4 will be taken off, so black plays with the bishop pair, but maybe his king has some minor coordination issues. Yes. Okay. Knight takes f3, g takes f3, exclamation mark. Knight to f6, bishop c4, exclamation mark. According to Alekhine, this is better than taking f7, because according to him, it's better to make the threat of taking f7 stronger. F takes c6, d takes e6, queen to b6. There's another line that deserves attention after queen takes d1, but this should pose white no trouble after rook takes d1, bishop g7, bishop c7, and castle, bishop b6, and white is going to win a pawn and have full control of the position, maintaining like a stable pressure kind of thing. Kind of interesting, stable pressure, positional pressure. Queen b6, yeah, it looks very logical, right? You are attacking two pawns, e6 and b2. But Alekhine stirs the game into combinational brilliancy. First, he plays queen to e2, exclamation mark, allowing queen takes b2. And it looks like white has some problems because these are both attacked, a1, c3, and not only are they attacked, but after a move like king to d2, white is going to have problems like knight h5, and if bishop e5, then bishop h6. Suddenly black is attacking white's king, and we can run through it. Yeah, king d3 and take, because if you take, then rook d8 and just queen b4 checkmate. So looks like white has a problem to solve, and king d2 will not solve it. White finds a spectacular move, knight to b5, exclamation mark. Because if pawn captures, then black's king is just getting killed after this line, rook d1. So he has to take the rook on a1, which happened in the game. But after queen takes a1, there follows king to f2, hanging a second rook, and he follows through and takes that rook, but it was basically forced because white neatly has every square covered except for b2, and a move like queen b2 would probably be a waste of time. So queen takes h1, knight to c7, and the game is close to finish. So king to d8, only move, queen to d2 check, bishop to d7, and now e takes d7, and black resigns. White is threatening knight to e6, checkmate. So after this checkmate, so black can try to parry with e5, but it's insufficient. Just knight to e6, king e7, promote, rook takes, queen takes, king to f7, knight takes f8 with check. So, and after king g7, just checkmate on e7. So the game is over. Interesting game. Yeah, so Alekhine, he plays very primitive way, just putting his pawns in the center and trying to create something playing bishop c4. Instead of a6, I wonder about the move queen to c7. I don't know if this move is problematic or not. I guess I don't know. He makes no comments about this move, but the point is that it prevents e5, and this is one of those kind of moves that you might see pretty often in blitz. Maybe just play bishop b5, and now you're renewing the threat of e5. So if bishop g7, then e5, take, the knight is pinned, of course. Yeah, this should be pretty good. Okay, knight g4, e6. So that's probably why. Yeah, I think we figured it out. So a6, but then that allows e5 and white won nicely. And that's why people who play old style Benoni try different approaches like check Benoni, but although I have to say that this move itself is not that good. After e4, d6, and bishop b5, Boris Avruka analyzes this, and the general consensus seems to be that black's position is borderline refuted. It's pretty tricky to refute, or refute in quotation marks, but it's still really good for white. After knight to d7, this knight is basically misplaced. It belongs on c7 instead. It wanted to go maybe knight a6 and knight c7. After this, the best move is a4, and you can check out Avruka's book, or maybe I'll make a separate video. This should be borderline refuted in white's favor. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed. Very fun game. Alekhine showing brilliant, yes, g takes f3, let's make this the main line. Okay. Knight b5 is pretty, sacrificing 2 rooks and killing the black king. This comes to show how king position is trumping all other factors. King safety is more important than material. So before you try to be greedy or try to hold on to material, focus on your king, first priority. Thank you and take care.